What is up, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Daily Superdraft Breakdown. That is not an official name of the show. I don't know what the name of the show is. I'm just making things up. But we're going to be breaking down Superdraft NBA today. If you haven't signed up for it, you're making horrible life choices. Sign up using promo code Grinders. You get $50 free just instantly and a 50% deposit bonus up to $500, I believe. If you haven't heard, they just got a partnership with Caesars Entertainment. Yes, it's the same Caesars Entertainment. They brought you Caesars Palace, Harrah's, Flamingo, all sorts of places over in Las Vegas, Lake Tahoe, New Orleans, all across the U.S., tons of places, 45 resorts. And so playing on Superdraft can get you nice little rewards over that VIP experiences. I just came back from the Super Bowl. I had a long weekend. I had a lot of fun, but I am now out a lot of money. Absolutely worth it. But in any case, get signed up for Superdraft. They have contests every day, 75K GPP today, 20K GPP today, almost certainly likely to overlay. And in case you don't know what you're doing on that site, don't worry, I'll explain here. We're going to be going through each position here for the entire day, for the entire slate, telling you who can play in cash, who to play in GPPs, what to look out for later on the day that could change some of these things. And don't worry, if you're setting lineups on other sites, you got 30 minutes after slate locks over on DraftKings, over on FanDuel, because they take off the first game here over at Superdraft, giving you a little bit more time to hear that injury news, giving you a little bit more time to make those lineups. So get on over, start playing, and let's break down things. If you haven't played, again, it is a multiplier, not salary. So you can play every single person you want to play. Anyone you want to play, you can throw into any lineups. There are no restrictions. Every player simply gets a multiplier. So we look at DeMarcus Cousins here. However many points he gets, which it's a mix between FanDuel and DraftKings scoring, steals, blocks, each worth 3, turnovers -1. Everything else the exact same as DraftKings. So 3.5 points for three-pointer, double-double bonus, the triple-double bonus, all those things the same over on DraftKings. Well, blocks, steals, and turnovers are the same as over on FanDuel. So whatever DeMarcus Cousins gets based on that scoring system, multiply by 1.65, and that is the number he gets. Over on the screen here, we have the RG projections for everything, the median, the floor, the ceiling, over on RG, using the multiplier here, so it's all set up. I'm going to do all the work for you. Let's start off with center. So center, if you see, look at all the positions right here, we see that 3 of the top 4 guys projected on the slate for median outcomes are centers. So there's dual position eligibility. We see guys like Embiid, guys like Bam, guys like Oubre have multiple positional eligibility. Basically, when we're looking at center here, I'm crossing off all the guys with center power forward eligibility. I'm not using them at the center position. I will, however, use them at the forward position. But the center position, knowing that these 3 guys more than likely going to end up on the winning lineup, more than likely going to end up on the optimal lineup, I'm planning on using one of these 3 guys in every single lineup at the center position, meaning if I'm using Bam, if I'm using Embiid, I'm using them over the power forward position. But the guy that clearly stands out, multiplier too high, we know how much he let us down last night, but Boogie just absolutely crushes, averaging, I think, 48 points, 50 points per 36 minutes. If this game stays close, I know it was a blowout yesterday. If this game stays close, then his 1.65x multiplier is likely to end him in the mid-60s, maybe even 70s. As you see over here, RG projections, he has a ceiling of 100. The guy can go for 60 fantasy points at any given game. So if he does that, he's absolutely crushing, absolutely a necessity on this slate. If you're playing cash, 100% play him. As of right now, unless something changes, 100% play him. And then after that, a guy that gives you a bunch of or a high ceiling too, Cantor. He's a guy that you can look at in tournaments. Again, 6 or 7 point change in median outcome for Cantor compared to Cousins, but gives you a pretty high ceiling. He can absolutely outscore Cousins on a given slate. Orlando, not a bad matchup. I know Lillard's coming back, which will eat into Cantor's production, but Cantor can get a few blocks, a few steals, which raises his floor and ceiling quite a bit. but he's going to end up with 10 plus rebounds. He's going to end up with 10 plus points. So you're getting the double-double. You're getting those points right off the bat there. And it's a decent matchup versus Orlando, who's pretty darn hurt right now. Lots of guys out. Fournier is out. Aaron Gordon's out, which is why Vooch is up here. Even at a 1.1x multiplier, he is a guy that is absolutely still in play. He can go for 70 real-life points because Cousins and Cantor can put up a dud. While he's the third guy that I'd be looking at in both cash and in tournaments, he's still a guy that's in play. After that, we have just the tournament guys. Gobert, main thing with him, not a huge median outcome, not a huge ceiling outcome, but he does have that 95th percentile outcome where he gets 5 or 6 blocks, steals, which at a 1.3x multiplier, 5 or 6, that's an extra 25 points. So Gobert can absolutely end up getting there in this spot and outscoring all these guys. He's in play for tournaments. And then total, like if LMA is out again, which as of right now, the injury report just came out not too long ago. I'm going to double check, but I think that LMA is in fact ruled out. That is correct. So Podol's going to be getting another start here. Could play 30 minutes. While not low enough in price over on DraftKings and FanDuel, he is at a 1.75x multiplier over on Superdraft. So he is very much in play in tournaments. The rest of these guys I will be avoiding. Yes, you can end up getting there with any of these guys. Anything can happen on any given night. But everyone else I'm going to avoid. So I'm going to have a bunch of ownership in Boogie, bunch of ownership in Cantor, a little bit in Vooch, and a little bit in Podol today, and a very small amount, maybe 1 or 2 shares over in Gobert. But that's where you're going with in tournaments is these guys with the massive ceiling, Podol, Cantor, Cousins mostly, and then Vooch and Gobert if you really want to. That's who you're playing at center today, unless something drastically changes. That's my advice. And for cash, 100% go Boogie. That's what I'll be doing. Again, unless something changes. Injuries can always change things, but most of the injuries we're looking at are actually in the Pistons game. So I'm not terribly worried about things changing. Let's move over to forward here. Forward, the guy that immediately pops off the page is Draymond. Again, he's been crushing it recently, putting up over 40 fantasy points over on DraftKings, putting up over 60 in Superdraft because of his multiplier here, a 1.6x multiplier with a guy that can get blocks, can get steals, is getting 10 plus assists every game, will likely get 10 plus rebounds. You're getting the double-double bonus, may not get a lot of real-life points, but he's contributing so much in every other single category, and he has triple-double upside. He hasn't been getting there in points. He's been getting there in boards, and he's been getting there in assists. He can still end up with 10, 12 points, but he's facilitating so much in this offense. We saw what he did last night. I think he ended up with 75, 80 super draft points because of his multiplier. He's the first person you're going with in cash, and I'm assuming he's going to be highly owned in tournaments. I'm probably eating that chop. I'll probably end up with around 70% ownership with him. I think he's likely going to come in at the 55% ownership range in all likelihood. Pricing's a little bit tighter than it has been in recent weeks. So it wouldn't surprise me if he is the main outlier with the far too high multiplier, and he's in most of the lineups. You can fade him and get leverage on the field, or you can play him. I'm planning more on playing him. Play him in cash, though, 100%. After that, cash is a little bit trickier. Embiid in a good spot versus Sacramento, but low multiplier. Jimmy been putting up over 45 points per game in each of the last 7. Been up near 50 a lot of those times. There's been a few blowouts, but matchup versus New York, not the best matchup in the world. So Jimmy's a little bit tough ass. Oubre sucks sometimes, just plain and simple. Sometimes he's good, sometimes he's not, but decent multiplier. Definitely in play in tournaments. I don't know if I'm going there in cash. Randall, we know he's going to get the minutes, but he'll end up around 50 points, which means that 1.15x multiplier should get you in the 60K range. I think he's a strong cash possibility. Tatum, if Brown is ruled out, I think is a strong cash possibility. But right now, as of this moment, my likely cash lineup is going to be Green, Embiid, and Butler. Like, it's pretty much for sure Green and Butler just because I know I'm getting that consistency. And then probably Embiid, but maybe Randall. And if we get news on Brown, probably Tatum will vault up to the 3rd spot here at forward for me. But we're looking at tournaments. Let's go on down the list. We got Ingles in there. Obviously, with Conley out, occasionally they have Mitchell running the point. Occasionally they'll have Ingles running the point like they do. Occasionally they'll have Bogdanovich take over. So it'll be an interesting scenario. We obviously got Clarkson coming in off the bench for that scoring. So he may not be doing it. It's most likely going to be Mitchell, but there is scenarios where Ingles ends up with a game that just absolutely crushes. We look at his ceiling projections, the third highest on the slate for the forward position, right behind Ben Simmons, way behind him, Draymond. But Ingles is definitely a guy with a 1.8x multiplier. He gets hot from beyond the arc like he did the other night. He can end up crushing this price tag. Just guy that you want to think about in tournaments, maybe not safe for cash. Ben Simmons, same thing, lower multiplier, but he can get that triple-double upside. Looking down, Tobias Harris, not really a guy that I want in tournaments, not really a guy that I want in cash. It's a good matchup for him. But with Simmons, Embiid, and Harris playing, likely to cut into his usage, decrease his upside. Probably not a guy that I want. Wiggins is fine, but not a guy that I have in any of my lineups in all likelihood. Jaylen Brown, again, don't know if he's going to play. If he does end up playing and you don't get that news until after lock, you can always swap onto him. That's the nice part again. You don't have to do 2v2 swaps. There's no direct pivot needed because everyone's a direct pivot. You can mass swap anyone over to Jaylen Brown at the guard or at the forward position. If you don't have him in your lineup, salary is not a thing. It's play anyone you want. So if Jaylen Brown is playing tonight and we don't get that news till later, he makes a decent play even in a tough matchup versus Utah. DeRozan, multiplier is a little bit low. We see his floor, ceiling, median projections. Nothing's that great. Harrison Barnes, I think, is interesting. He can get you 45 points pre-multiplier, a 1.55x multiplier. There are a few scenarios where he ends up there. Same thing with Bogdanovich. Ingram, I don't think will make the cut for me. He's definitely in play, but Houston, again, been a tougher matchup recently. I don't think that he offers you as much upside as a lot of these other guys. We look at all these guys here. While he's right with everyone else in terms of median projection, his ceiling is drastically lower than almost everyone except for DeRozan. So Ingram, not a guy in tournaments I'm looking at. Kind of same thing with Zion. Again, low multiplier. We know what they're doing. We know what they're going to end up with every night. It's going to be the 40 to 45 to 50 point range, and that's not going to get you done after the multiplier in most scenarios. Gary Trent Jr. is, however, interesting. So obviously, huge uptick in usage when Lillard was no longer the floor. Lillard's back, but there was a game or two with Lillard still in there where Gary Trent Jr. just got hot from behind the arc and just kept checking. We could see that happening in this game today. They're still a little bit injured, still no McCollum. So Gary Trent Jr. at 1.75x multiplier, I think is in play for tournaments. And one of my favorite, most interesting ones, who I don't think is going to be terribly high owned, Juan Toscano Anderson. 2x multiplier. He's had 30-point games. He can get blocks. He can get steals. He can get hot from beyond the arc. He's getting boards. He's getting playing time. He's a little priced up around the industry and other sites, so he might get overlooked over here on Superdraft at a 2x multiplier. We see his median outcome only at 46, but he does have 70-point ceiling upside. It's going to be a little volatile. He got off to a rough start in the last half. I think only had 3 points in the game last night, but still ended up with around 27 points. So we know we can get hot from the field. It's a good match versus San Antonio, and they'll probably need him for minutes. So he's a guy that I think is in play. Outside of that, you're just taking darts here. Like Keldon Johnson, Barrett's multiplier is probably a little bit too low. They can get there. Bacon, Rodney Hood are going to play a boatload of minutes. They could end up getting there. Covington can get hot from behind three, get a few steals. Holmes is always a shot at going 40. But most of these guys here are just kind of long shot guys. So I'm not planning on playing them. I'm planning on playing guys from this spot and higher, outside of maybe a few random just spots where I'm stacking up Orlando. I'm using Vooch. I'm using Cole Anthony. I'm bringing it back with Lillard or Hood, or assuming Lillard has a bad game, Gary Trent Jr. and Hood. Like, there's a few different ways that it can happen, but these guys are kind of the ones that I'm throwing in stacks where I'm eating chalk of Lillard and Vooch or Cantor. I'm eating those guys, so I need the game to stay close. If it doesn't stay close, the other guys aren't going to be in the winning lineup. So it's more about playing time than anything, throwing these guys in there, hoping for a close game, hoping Gary Trent Jr. has a decent spot. But for forward, that's basically where we're at. Like, just rolling down here, nothing's really standing out. No, you're not getting a huge amount of upside with anyone, even at their lower multipliers. Although at San Antonio, Derek White is out, so maybe Patty Mills, maybe Lonnie Walker can end up doing something. But that's a very, very low outcome still, even at their high multiplier. It's definitely a chance, but I think I'll take my shots elsewhere. All right, last up, let's look at the guard spot here. So Lillard immediately stands off the page. We know what he was doing before he got injured. He was putting up 50, 60 points every single game, and even at a 1.15x multiplier. Still very much in play. My favorite plays are the next two guys, and this is likely who you're rolling with for cash. Like, I'm not going to argue with Wall or Fox, but Lillard locked into a massive role and a decent matchup. Mitchell playing point, too high of a multiplier here at 1.35x. Going to be a staple, going to be in my cash game lineup in all likelihood. Cole Anthony, 1.8x multiplier, far too high. He's running point. Everyone's injured. Fournier and Gordon are out, which will give him a usage uptick. He'll be playing the entire game. If this game stays close, he'll end up with 35 minutes. And at a 1.8x multiplier, 55 median, 73 ceiling projection, should absolutely crush here. So these three guys are your cash game build. These three guys are going to be the highest owned. And after that, you have some interesting spots. Like, not far behind these guys is John Wall, who hasn't played 35 plus minutes in a game in a while. Could happen here. Oladipo is out. Gordon is playing, but Wall has been absolutely crushing on a per minute basis. It's just, will he get those minutes? If he does, his ceiling is probably higher than 74. Guy I like. Fox generally ends up in the 40-point range. Will occasionally have a 60-point outing. Philly, not the best spot in the world, but we get huge ceiling with Fox. He can absolutely destroy any matchup. It's just, will that happen, or will he end up with a 40-burger? I don't know. But he's a guy that's in play for tournament. Kemba Walker, 1.55x multiplier. He's been at the low 30s range in terms of minutes. Shoots a lot of threes, which, again, you get that 3.5 points per three-pointer over on Superdraft here. 1.55x, can absolutely put up a massive game. Eric Gordon been crushing, putting up 40 points a game recently, a 1.6x multiplier. He's going to be a staple in my lineup. We see his ceiling here. Again, a guy that shoots a lot of threes, can get hot, and can crush in any spot. He's probably right there with Kemba with my favorite tournament plays, the lower owned side. Mitchell's just my favorite overall play. But these are two guys that I'm going to be using in a decent amount of tournaments. Problem is, I want to use Gordon mostly if I'm stacking up that game. It's hard to do. I don't like Zion and Ingram over on the other side. Basically, I will probably have one lineup with Wall, with Gordon, with Ingram, and with Zion in it, hoping for an OT or double OT game, or just a game that goes bonkers for no apparent reason. Outside of that, we've already kind of gone through Ingles, Tatum, Brown. All these guys are in play. Clarkson, coming off the bench without Conley in there, gets about a 4 to 5 minute bump in his total time on the floor in all likelihood. Ended up with 30 the last game, where he had been in the mid-20s prior to. Utah has been on an absolute streak recently, and Clarkson eats up so much usage off the bench that he can get there at 1.6x multiplier. DeRozan, again, gone through it. Probably a little bit too high. Lonzo can get you 40 points in any game. I don't know how much I'll use him, but he's definitely a guy that you can play and is very much in play at his multiplier, because he can get those blocks, steals, that gives you a little bit more of a ceiling, and he can get you a double-double or a triple-double even in some spots here. So for tournaments, Lonzo's in play. Buddy Hyde, I'm done with. Murray, his multiplier is probably a bit too low. I know he crushed last night, just absolutely destroyed. I think at this multiplier, he ended up with 90 points over on Superdraft, which is crazy. But when you get 8 steals, that's 24 points times 1.3. That's 33 points just off of steals last night. And he also contributed in every other area. It was fantastic, but I don't expect that to happen again. But I'm not going to argue with playing a guy like him on a slate that's not too big, because, again, not taking the first game. Superdraft doesn't offer it on their main GPPs. It's starting at 7:30 Eastern time. So, again, finish your other lineups. Come on over to Superdraft. Put some entries in. There's going to be overlay. Best spot to make money. Next up, we got Halliburton, 1.6x multiplier. Definitely in play. Can definitely go off. Then we get down here, none. Like, with Butler back, the usage just isn't there quite to the same amount. Even at a high multiplier, I don't know if he's worth it. Hero can always get hot, but probably not worth it. Peyton here, we don't know what this rotation is going to look like over in New York. So once you get down here, it's just kind of GPP darts, hoping for the best. Like Vassell or Lonnie Walker, with White out, they could extend him out of playing time. Any number of injuries could happen. So mostly you're just sticking with these guys in tournaments. all the way down to about here. These guys are all in play. RG medium projections like them. RG ceiling projections like them. I'm not going to argue with any of them, but that's kind of where you're at for today's slate over in fantasy or on Superdraft. Gosh, it's been a while. Over on Superdraft, again, get signed up using the promo code Grinders. Free $50 plus a deposit bonus, 50% up to $500, I believe. Plus, they're running a contest or raffle. 10,000 Caesars Entertainment tier points, which, if you are unaware, is $1,000. So you get that, you get signed up for that. Chance at a free $1,000 that you can use at any Caesars resort. That's any of them. There's 45 over the US. They're all over the place. They're all fantastic. I've been to about half of them. I might need to reassess my life, but yeah, I've been to a lot. Absolutely amazing. All of them. Go gamble, go get a nice spot A, whatever you want to use that $1,000 for, you can use it. But get signed up for that, get a chance at that raffle, and get over to Superdraft. Any questions you have or anything you want to see on these videos going forward, we're going to be popping out about 3 a week for the near future here, trying to get you the breakdown every single day for Superdraft so you can get on over there and you can win money. But it's been fun. Again, let me know anything you want to see on this. I'm out of here. See you, kids.